Hello and welcome to The Hash. It's Tuesday. We're charged up here on The Hash today. It's CoinDesk TV. We're coming to you live. I'm Zach Seward. We got Will Foxley, George Kaludis, and Jen Sanasi here to get you caught up on crypto news today. Will, starting us off, what's the latest in weaponized finance? What's going on?
That's right. This year, we've seen a lot of crazy things happening around Bitcoin and politics, starting off with the trucker riots up in Canada. And now we're seeing Bitcoin, crypto, and weaponized finances take a huge place within this Ukrainian and Russian conflict. This morning, Visa and Mastercard decided to block a number of entities included on the sanctions list that the United States created last week. Essentially, these banking services in Russia will no longer be able to use Visa or Mastercard, which are some of the largest financial institutions in the world. Essentially, all those entities will be blocking everyone underneath them as well. So if you're an ordinary Russian citizen who has a Visa or Mastercard, you won't be able to use it because your parent company that you subscribe to as a banking service can't use it either. This is a pretty big implication for everyone who's on the ground in Russia. You're not going to be able to go buy a train ticket. You're not going to be able to go to the coffee store and get a coffee with your Visa anymore. You're going to have to find some other means. We've seen a lot of lines forming at ATMs for getting cash. The Russian ruble, of course, is taking a pounding. It's down quite a bit. So across the board, we are just seeing what people have predicted for quite a while, which is the fact that government and money are intertwined together, and there are consequences for that if you're on the wrong side of the global order. Zach, I want to throw this one up to you. What is your takeaway from seeing this headline with Visa, MasterCard?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like what you said, right? This is becoming the test case for the weaponization of the financial system. And it's really fascinating to see, right? The idea here, I guess, is to sort of exert pressure to speak out against these actions in Russia. It's inflicting pain on a populace that doesn't necessarily seem to be supporting these actions. But the idea is by putting choke points on people's freedom to transact, the idea is that that pressure mounts and the ramifications climb upward, and hopefully change is made in a way that can de-escalate a violent situation in Ukraine. So to see this happen is pretty crazy. We're going to see more of it. We saw pictures of people, in the Moscow subway, unable to buy a ticket, getting backed up, and it's sort of the collateral damage of Putin's actions in the Ukrainian invasion. And it's been fascinating to watch from a financial perspective to see how this is continuing to unfold. Jen, I'm going to toss it to you.
Yeah, like I said yesterday, I think this is just really frustrating. I said this yesterday, the Russian people didn't ask for this war. They didn't ask to be in this situation, and they are slowly but surely getting cut off from the rest of the world. I was reading about the lineups at ATMs, the ones that you were talking about, Will, and hearing about Russians just desperately trying to get their hands on foreign dollars as the ruble just crashes. And it's really sad to hear about. They can't even leave now. The planes can't fly in Western airspace. And so they're stuck in this reality. And so I really feel like we're at a point in history where when we come out of this, people are going to start to understand why we need an alternative to the financial system. And so I don't want to say bittersweet, but it's almost a necessary time we're in so that we can move away from the system that has restrained us for so long. I can say, though, a frustrating part of the story for me to read was that Visa and Mastercard, they donated $2 million for humanitarian relief, which is amazing for the people in Ukraine. But I don't often hear about financial players like them donating money to humanitarian relief when there is conflict in other parts of the world. So that was another frustrating part of the story for me to read. And I just hope that this conflict can be resolved in a timely manner. But Will, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, just a quick question for the group I'm curious about before I hand it off to George. Visa and MasterCard, like the largest interfaces for the ordinary customers is using that chip or that card to go buy something, right? And so Visa, MasterCard have effectively cut off a huge part of the Russian populace from being able to interact with any sort of electronic goods, right? You can't buy something on Amazon anymore because you don't have Visa. I'm wondering if the collateral there was worth it for Visa and MasterCard. That just seems to be taking a shot at the Russian civilians. I don't know enough about Visa or MasterCard's backend, right? That maybe by breaking the link with these banks as well, they were enforcing those sanctions and putting more pressure on Putin's regime. But from a high level perspective, just as a layman, it would seem that this move really hurts the Russian population more, which seems to almost be kind of hostage to the Putin regime at this point. Zach, I want to get your thoughts on that, but George, do you want to get up to your point after that?
Okay.
I mean, again, like this is about exerting pressure through, non-military force, right? And it's going to be interesting to see if this works or if this just galvanizes, Putin's resolve to, inflict damage on as much as possible in a territory that he's long-eyed. So it's going to be interesting to see if this produces the desired outcomes. The idea of sanctions is, again, to sort of inflict this pain in a way to sort of force pressure from within. If that can happen within the financial system as well, it's going to be interesting to see how these companies do affect change, if at all. But again, I mean, this is that really crazy moment in which the currency part of cryptocurrency is becoming really important, right? I mean, I think we've sort of seen this shift toward the asset part of cryptocurrency, right? These are assets. These are digital assets that we hold and that we retain value in over time. Now, I think we're seeing people use the currency part in a meaningful capacity in a way that is being forced upon them in many circumstances, both in Ukraine and potentially in Russia. So to see this unfold is really quite remarkable. Tossing it to George, though, for his thoughts.
Yeah, there's such a complicated topic, and I honestly feel just sad for the Russian people who have nothing to do with this war and this invasion at all, and they just are going to have their lives upended. And Zach, while I agree that this might end up putting pressure on, the Putin regime, when Jen mentioned, airspace being blocked, I thought about this Twitter account that I saw that is tracking Russian oligarch private jets flying around. This isn't the United States where the pressure of the populace and the citizens is going to lead to something where, you're going to lose voters because, what do the voters have any say here? So while I agree there's going to be pressure from the populace coming to the Putin regime, it feels different to me. It feels more scary. It feels like these people they're going to be powerless. And I have nothing more to say beyond that because it's such a complicated topic.
Again, just a really dire situation on the ground as well in Ukraine. So, as much as there are financial implications here, again, this is not a crypto story. Really, a lot of just human suffering and loss going on in that part of the world right now. So, we're going to change gears. We're going to something a bit more trivial. We're going to the world of Silicon Valley venture capital investing. We're going to talk about Electric Capital. They've been on the scene for a while now, producing reports and making smaller investments in a number of crypto firms and projects across the board. Now they're sort of making the jump to the big leagues. They got $1 billion across 2 funds. They have a fresh kind of approach to investing in community first projects. They see that being where the value lies, and they have 2 big old funds to make it happen now. So all of a sudden, among the Paradigms and A16Zs of the world, Electric Capital is here with $1 billion in fresh powder to invest in various crypto projects, again, across the scene. So I'm going to toss this to Will for his thoughts. Electric, obviously been on the scene for a while. Their last fund was $110 million. So this is a significant upsizing of their vision and their capacity. What does it mean that Electric is now a major player on the scene?
Yeah, I won't speak to Electric too much because I don't know their past investment history very well. Obviously, most people in crypto know of Electric at this point. I think the headline for me speaks to it of itself. $1 billion is a huge allotment, and that is up there with the other fundraisings that we've seen today, like Paradigm also just got a huge bag, and one other one is missing off the top of my head right now. It's also a $1 billion raise. There's a lot of these happening right now, and it seems to be at the point where crypto might be eking its way into a bear market. I know that yesterday we had a nice little pump. It was like 14% up for Bitcoin in 24 hours, which was nice. Everyone was kind of cheering on Twitter. But the mood and the sentiment seem to have changed quite a bit. Yet we're still seeing these very large allocations for crypto. And I think that's why in this article here, we're seeing that the Electric guys are really talking about a long-term thesis. We've seen a lot of flipping in crypto. A lot of traders always talk about moving on to the next coin. But VCs, for the most part, are thinking on 5 to 10 year, even longer time horizons with these networks. And I think that's the responsible thing to do. But I also think it plays to the current sentiment in crypto right now. It'd be very difficult for them to talk about how they're going to move in and be movers and shakers of the industry when sentiment's kind of changing. We're moving towards a bear market. George, I want to throw this one up to you.
Yeah, I'll bring my cynicism first, and then Jen can bring in less cynicism, I think. 2 points. Right. 2 points, one shorter than the other. The first one is, Zach, you mentioned $100 million $110 million first fund, $1 billion second fund. In the private equity VC investing world, moving upstream sometimes doesn't mean success. Sometimes you had success in that $100 million range. You should probably stay there. We'll see how they do. My cynical VC coin take, which is a little bit longer here, is for the few purist Bitcoiners that listen to this, just know that the so-called destruction of 100% of the value of altcoins is just not going to happen anytime soon. There's simply way too much money in this space, simply way too many people breathing the hopium, right? Where I do think this electric capital story differs slightly is that they seem less committed to the idea of more committed to the idea of less VC involvement, which is funny because they're a VC. I think that's interesting because this is sort of already happening on its own. Twitter anods and cartoon characters seem to be very cautious of being dumped on by their friends at Alameda and other VCs. So VC money's here because they can make money for the next 10 years. But I'm really glad that the ethos is shifting away from this like VC coin only idea. But these altcoins are going to be around for a while because this is a ton of money. Anyway, I guess I was less cynical than I thought. Anyway, Jen, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that community aspect that you brought up there. I know last year there was that Masari graphic that was making the rounds that kind of pointed to one of the reasons why people don't like Solana. And it's because the majority of the tokens are held by the VCs and the team behind the project. And they're saying that they are really interested in projects that put the community first. And it got me thinking, I guess I put my will cap on the historical context between community and influence in commerce, right? Communities have always formed around trade and commerce. And if you think about it in the modern age, that's really kind of what's happening here. And for a VC to make major bets on this community aspect is interesting. I'm sure other VCs are also thinking in that way. They just haven't publicized it. So to hear this narrative come from them, I think it's just them noticing a major trend that has happened historically. I think I said trained. I meant to say trend.
Nice.
Trained.
Nice.
Good times. So yeah, fact check on George. I think this is their third fund. So their second fund was the 110. So this is the 10x to the third. So just FYI, they've been around for a while. But you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Both of you are right to bring up that sort of attempt to sort of thread the needle here, right? I think there's a growing distrust of VC firms getting in early, dumping on retail, dumping on other market participants. And this is something that, the people at Xtract seem to be fully cognizant of, right? These are people who, famously produce like an annual developer report, looking at all these communities and tracking GitHub commits across various open source projects. So they seem to be a bit more boots on the ground. And I'm really interested to see how their investment thesis plays out over time because they got a whole lot of money all of a sudden to play with. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to have a tease. I'm going to tease something. Can I get a clue on the Chiron here? Yeah. All right. FC Barcelona. We're going to the sports desk. We're going to talk about Barca trying to launch its own token, according to some reports out there in the media. Jen's going to tell us what that is all about on the other side of this break. Hey, it's the Hash. We're just flying by the seat of our pants here. Stick with us. Thanks so much. We appreciate your support. Keep watching.
And we're back. I'm sorry, but we're going to talk about not so fun stuff before we get to Sports Desk, because that's my job here on the Hash. So my story, the Giving Block, a crypto donation marketplace, has been purchased by Shift4, a point-of-sale payment company. Interesting tidbit about Shift4 is founded in 1999 by Jarek Isaacman when he was 16 years old. I think that's crazy. It's a public company now. It's worth $4 billion. The Giving Block was acquired for $300 million, which is wild, even though most of it is subject to an earnout, which means the sellers will only be compensated the full $300 million if the Giving Block hits predetermined and agreed to metrics. The company only had $5 million of revenue. It's like a X valuation multiple on revenue. But I'm not going to turn this into a lecture about inflated valuations. I would rather us talk about how this is a good thing for crypto in general. A lot of people have been talking about crypto donations in the face of the Canadian trucker protest and with giving Ukrainians financial aid where they needed. Where I think this is different is that this is probably not the uncensorable / privacy angle. The Giving Block enables sort of the United Ways and the American Cancer Societies of the world to accept crypto, right? These are peacetime charities, if I can say that, if that's a correct thing to say. There's literally trillions of dollars, well, maybe not trillions anymore, but at least $1.5 trillion of value out there now that these charities would be silly not to accept. And from a donation angle, there's certainly something to be said about the crazy amounts of unrealized capital gains that can be mitigated, like you have to pay taxes on, that could be mitigated by people donating all or a portion of those earnings. And I'm not necessarily one to scream from the rooftops about donating to save on taxes. I'd rather you donate because you're a good person who cares about something very deeply, but who am I to decide that? So I think this is a net good for crypto. The Giving Block and its equivalents should grow bigger and bigger. This is great for, these peacetime charities, like I said. But anyway, I think it's a good thing. Anyone want to jump on there? I don't really have. Everyone's nodding. Who agrees with me the most? Will, go for it.
Yeah, these stories are always interesting when you see the intersection of like charities and crypto, because crypto should enable me to move money from person A to person B seamlessly. There shouldn't have to be a middleman, right? Like that's the point of peer-to-peer digital cash, Bitcoin, is there doesn't need to be a middleman. But as the crypto industry has matured more and more, we've seen that actually you do need middlemen across the industry, even in things like charity. You see it with like node operators, as things like Infura. You have to have a middleman there at some point because people don't want to deal with all this complexity. They don't want to deal with these weird addresses. They don't want to deal with these weird seed phrases. They're not interested in knowing anything about crypto. They just want to get the money and get on with their life. And so that's what something like the Giving Block enables, is where, hey, I can take an address, I can take some information from the American Cancer Society. They have a Bitcoin address. It's verified by the Giving Block. I can send Bitcoin towards them. And then, yes, I'll get all my tax information back pretty quickly and seamlessly. So it's pretty smart. Like the cynical take would be, hey, peer-to-peer digital cash, I shouldn't have to deal with any of this extra stuff. I think the Ukrainian situation we saw with the tweets the other day is a really great example of why something like the Giving Block exists. So Ukraine's Twitter account posted the other day about, hey, donate ETH or donate USDC or donate Bitcoin to us. Immediately, Vivek Baturin tweeted out, hey, don't touch those addresses yet. We need to make sure they're verified. We don't know if their account was hacked. You might be donating to the wrong person, maybe even Putin himself. You just don't know because it's not verified. So we had to wait until the Ukrainian account, the Ukrainian, I think it was a VP or someone else in the government, verified those addresses. Something like the Giving Block verifies those addresses in the first place, so you don't have to go through all that. You know who you're interacting with. Zach, I'll throw it up to you.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points. And I think, something that I've been kind of thinking about lately is just, the optionality that is being built into the crypto system, right? There are people for whom just being like, hey, peer-to-peer cash, I want it straight, direct. I know how to do this. I'm comfortable doing this. I can do this in a true peer-to-peer fashion, as was first envisioned by the Bitcoin white paper these many years ago. But there are other people who don't want to do that, don't feel comfortable doing that, and want some other means to do so, right? So I think what we're seeing in the crypto space is, again, this like emergence of all this optionality, right? Hey, you want to be a hardcore self-custody Bitcoin maxi? You can do that. Hey, do you want a highly custodial middleman, making sure that you don't mess up being your own bank? Because that's a scary prospect to many people, even those that are somewhat technically capable. You can also do that. So I think what we see here is sort of a really interesting example of the emergence of optionality in the giving space, where we can send it directly. You just got to tweet it out. You can send it to an address. You can be done with it. Or, hey, if that's not your speed, if you want additional sort of, forms or tax forms or whatever, there are services that can also provide that. And, as we see time and time again, middlemen in this space still command big time valuations, whether that's Coinbase, whether that's a custody firm. There's this middle layer between end user and on chain that is accumulating a lot of value, and we're seeing that time and time again with companies that are popping in terms of valuations. But I'm going to toss this to Jen for her thoughts on this and more.
Yeah, the giving block is super easy to use. I don't know if they partnered with CoinDesk's consensus this past year, but I know the year before they did, and it was really easy. All you had to do to donate was click a button and you could donate crypto to one of several charities. And so I think about the amount of people who have been onboarded into the crypto space in the last year. And the worries that they have, and we see it in the headlines often, they're worried about taxes, they're worried about fraud. And I think all three of you have hit the nail on the head. And this gives them a really safe, easy way to use that crypto for good. I went on the Giving Block's website before the show, and they said that they really think that this is going to drive mainstream adoption. And I'm not going to go hard on them because it is a charity, but I just would love to see marketing departments come up with something else than mainstream adoption. But I do think it is gonna do a lot for the mainstream who've gotten into crypto. They also said that they hope it drives innovation in the nonprofit space, which is interesting because we don't often hear about innovation in nonprofit. And so if this can help people to start thinking about new ways to innovate in nonprofit, I think that is really cool. So I am happy that we came out of the break with this feel-good story. But now we are going to Sports Desk, and I am dramatically pausing for the graphic.
Sports Desk.
What was that noise in the background?
What is that scream? Was that
That's
always
really
there?
like a moan.
It was me.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't me. No, it wasn't me.
It was just Zach.
It was good.
All right. Okay. So we're talking about soccer or football. Spanish soccer club FC Barcelona wants to create its own cryptocurrency and build their own metaverse. Now, the soccer giant has rejected offers to be associated with other crypto enterprises because they want to do it themselves. This was interesting to me, and I didn't know this. I'm sure sports fans did, so please don't come for me. Unlike other teams, Barcelona is owned and operated by its fans, with around 160,000 members governing the club. And so I just learned more about sports every day on this show, and there seems to be more teams than I thought that are governed by their fans. But George, I'm going to knock this one down to you because I know that you have some things to say about this story.
Yeah, and I played soccer. That's my jersey because I played soccer.
Shout out Davidson. Right, this is Steph Curry of Davidson soccer right here.
Yeah, I am the Steph Curry of Davidson soccer.
Yeah, you can nail shots from way downtown.
First, the metaverse for soccer or football is FIFA Ultimate Team, so I don't know why we need another metaverse, just saying. But there's actually a really, really interesting conversation we can have because the economics of European soccer is actually really different than the economics of American sports in general. American sports teams tend to make money. Even these MLS teams that no one really watches, they make money. These large soccer clubs that are purchased by sheiks with oil money and Russian billionaires with steel money become status symbols and playthings. And there's a really, really good book called Soccernomics that talks about these type of things. But in general, the way to be a successful soccer club is to spend a ton of money on player wages, even at the expense of profitability, which leads up perfectly to us talking about FC Barcelona specifically. So they had Lionel Messi for many, many years, the greatest soccer player to ever live. And he was paid in excess of $90 million just from Barcelona in some years. And they spent years winning basically everything until they were headed for financial ruin and they were forced to let Messi go off to Paris, which is honestly a tragedy. However, this does certainly represent something that FC Barcelona can use to make money, potentially to hop on this little hype cycle to buoy their financial situation. A lot of people bought Barcelona jerseys for the last 15 years because Messi was there. They had Ronaldinho before that. Now they're kind of devoid of this central character, central player that's looked at as the best in the world that people can latch onto and buy their jerseys. They still have 160,000 people making decisions for the club. So it is kind of this, those 160,000 people, along with the people in Barcelona, probably would hop onto the train and make some money for the team so they can, continue going on. There's been a lot of there's crazy because soccer is so intertwined with politics. There's stuff with like the Catalans versus, broader Spain. And you can talk about this all day with FC Barcelona, but it's an interesting move. I guess they can make some money off it, so they should do it because I don't want to see them go under.
I'd listen to the George podcast on the history of
We should do a George
Barcelona.
Soccer show.
I learned just so much right there. Just the George Soccer Pod.
I think that should
amazing.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was good stuff. I mean, whether they use it or not, I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, right? Because like Socios and stuff, they do fan tokens. They do ways to sort of juice fan engagement. If this becomes new and novel, it would be interesting to see how it all ends up. But Jen, curious for your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask the question, is this the best way for them to make money? You talked about them not having that star player. Is investing money into building a metaverse and coming up with their own crypto, whether that be a fan token or something, some kind of currency that fans can use to buy merchandise or other soccer related things? Like, is that really the best way for them to make money in the short term? And it seems like a risky long-term bet.
No.
Yes.
Maybe.
Divided. Oh, we got a maybe? Will, you should have went with the maybe on that one. All right.
I don't have an answer here. I have
all
no
right,
interest
we're
in
shutting it
football
down.
or
Tomorrow we're
knowledge
going
of
to
it.
come back with the George Football Pod. It's going to be great. Till now, this has been the Hash. Tomorrow, who knows? We'll see what we bring in tomorrow. But yeah, I'm Zach Seward. We got Will Foxley, Jensen Assey, George Kalutis. We're here on CoinDesk TV. Check us out later, 3 p.m. That's when All About Bitcoin is on. In the meantime, plenty of good stories on the site. Go check them out. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace to all.
Bye.